Did you find, maybe with the benefit of hindsight, that doing something like that kind of helped with breaking you out of your shell? Because, when you're going out there as Thom Latimer, yes, it's a character, but it's also you, right? To an extent. But when you're going flag waving American, you can just be completely different to yourself. Did you find that a little easier for you to get used to the business?
I mean, that's a good point, and I want to say yes. It definitely helped. All that kind of stuff did to be able to get out of your shell. Because those wrestling shows too weren't like I said how they would be now, which is more towards television wrestling and current promos and all that kind of stuff. It was very much family friendly, and you were more or less a cheerleader in the ring rather than a wrestler. It'd be okay to break out of character and break kayfabe and stop selling to be able to get all the kids behind you. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
really, it was more like if you were to mix theater with professional wrestling rather than it being professional wrestling. But it definitely did help get me out of my shell, and um, I needed those reps, and I needed to be around a lot of those guys, especially once I got into Brian Dixon's shows, All Star Wrestling, which a lot of guys did. Daniel Bryan, um, he would do tours with him, and Nick Aldis started with him, Rampage Brown started with a lot of the guys did, and I was one of those guys too. And back in the day, he still had sort of the last territory you would sort of call it in the UK, where you could wrestle 6-7 days a week for him. We would wrestle on the a thing called camp shows. Basically, it was like a place that holiday makers go because they can't afford or they don't have time to be able to go abroad. So it's like a big sort of like park where people stay and people will spend the weekend there or have a whole week there. And there's things for the kids to do and all that. And so we would wrestle on all these shows as well as the sort of shows in the local town hall and things like that. So we got really lucky back then because, like I said, as a young kid, getting to go on the road with Brian Dixon's All Star Wrestling, I got to wrestle every day. And when you're a kid living in your parents' house, you don't need much money to live on. So getting paid 35 pounds a day for me, it was great because I could spend that money on booze and go.
Now, were these the same as the Butland shows?
Yes, it's the
Okay,
same.
just making sure.
Scotland.
Because like you hear a lot about that. You talked about Brian Danielson. I think Colt Cabana used to talk about
All
it a
did.
lot too, where
Yeah.
he learned so much from it. But even like in the 90s, like Chris Jericho's book, he talks about, going overseas and working these kind of shows. And it's where he really started to hone himself because you're working sometimes the same people, sometimes completely different people, but constantly. And it's not common for indie wrestling, weekends, that's normally when you end up working.